I just got this white thing in a box. It says Element 14. It says Raspberry Pi. Huh. Have one yourself? Don't know how to set it up? I'll show you how in this episode of technolockr. Talk about small computers. This Raspberry Pi located in this box right here is a very small computer with 512 megabytes of RAM, and it comes with a 700 megahertz processor, a RCA video port, an audio jack, USB 2.0 ports, 2 of them, an Ethernet port, an HDMI port, a power port, powered by micro USB right there, and an SD card slot for your hard drive of the computer. This is a very small computer designed for learning how to program, or just having a very small computer, very small package. You can put a little case around it and you can use it as a full function computer that is not less than, but the size of a credit card. So I haven't really unboxed this thing yet, so let's get to it. So when you first open the Raspberry Pi, what you'll find is the box, obviously, the safety, regulatory compliance and safety information right here. You can toss off the side, most people don't read that. And most importantly, your Raspberry Pi, which comes in a static electricity proof bag, so that none of the components get damaged, because there is no case that comes with this. So this is your Raspberry Pi right there. That is your processor. Yes, folks, that is your processor. Most of the computers are much bigger than this, but this one does not have as much power as a computer, so it doesn't need one as big. This runs a 700 megahertz Broadcom CPU with a very powerful video GPU. Since it has HDMI, it must have a very powerful video core inside. And this is run by, or it's based off of the ARM structure, which is a structure that is based on mobile phones like iPhones and Android phones, and this is the same kind of phone that would come in a low, a mid-range Android phone, probably a little bit lower end these days, but that's basically what you got. You got 2 USB ports like I showed you, Ethernet. This is a video port, the yellow one, and the audio is the black. You have a couple ports here for putting other things like you can put a touchscreen on here and make this almost like a phone. A couple other things you can do with that, and HDMI port as well. That's how you're going to carry all of your video to your TV or your monitor, which I have one right there. So that's it for this guy. What else you're going to need when you get a Raspberry Pi? Well, the thing itself is $35, but you're going to need some other stuff to accompany it and make sure that you have it all set up properly. So what you're going to need is a power adapter. This is for my Samsung Captivate, because I no longer use that. I have a Galaxy Note 2 now, so I can use this from the other one. With a power supply here and a micro USB port. You can find that standard in all Android phones, or you can buy them for about $10. Also, what you're going to need is a mouse, like I have right here, and a keyboard, like I have right here, as well as some sort of cable for plugging into either the the TV or the monitor. Like the monitor I set up here, I have a DVI to HDMI cable. This is 10 foot. This was probably about $10, $10-15. You will also need an SD card. I recommend, this is a Class 6 card, if you can see that. Class 6, right at the bottom right there. I recommend Class 6 or higher, because this is basically your hard drive. So the lower the class of the SD card is, the slower it'll boot up and all that kind of stuff. That is your hard drive right there. This is only 8 gigs. You can get as many as you want. And last thing is I also recommend getting one of these USB hubs, which turns one port into 4 or more. And since you only have 2 ports in here, I'd recommend that for plugging other stuff in. Also, that's one of these, and this is the other one that I have that has a micro SD slot, regular SD slot, a bunch of things you can plug into there, as well as 3 more USB ports. So I like this one too. This one's cheaper, but nonetheless, they're both USB ports. I'll put the links up in the description for those. Also, what I recommend is to print out with another computer, the quick start guide for the Raspberry Pi, because it shows you how to set it up and download the image onto the SD card, because you're going to have to format the SD card, by the way. And this shows you just the basics in quick start. It also shows you how to boot into the OS correctly. So it says, set up your Raspberry Pi, you'll need SD card, HDMI. I've pretty much listed all of these. Oh, also if you want to connect to the network, you need an Ethernet cable. Or use one of your USB ports for a wireless little card, which I don't have yet. But so I can't get connected to the internet right now because there's no plug where I am. So power adapter, like I said before, it says good to have one at 700 milliamp hours at 5 volts is essential. It says, and this one is red. There's no way for me to show you on this because it won't focus incorrectly, but this is indeed fits perfectly in those requirements. And the next page, the next few pages, shows you how to download the image onto your SD card. So this would be very handy to use. There's a program called Windows. This is for Windows only. I recommend using Windows to do this because it's easier than the Mac. I did this doing the Mac, but I use a program called Raspberry Pi SD card creator, because without it you'd have to type in terminal files and it takes a while. So this will help you. That's doing that, and then booting up your Raspberry Pi for the first time. So when I come back, I will show you it plugged in with the computer, mouse, keyboard, and all that, so we can boot it up for the first time. Okay, so I've plugged in everything that I need right now. Right now I have the 2 USB ports plugged in, the HDMI adapter that plugs into the back of that monitor over there for the video. I have the AC adapter right here, and all you have to do to turn it on is just plug it in. And I have the SD card mounted on the bottom. So once everything is set up, and if you'll notice, actually the monitor is in the yellow mode right there, which means it's going in power save, so it recognizes that it's connected. Make sure that your monitor is set onto the DVI mode or whatever mode that you have it plugged into, or your TV, to make sure that you will boot in and you can see the screen. So let's plug it in and get started. Plugging it in. Now once you plug it in correctly, you should see some LEDs come on. Once they turn green, there you go. You are booting into the operating system. Now, what the Quick Start Guide says to do is to follow the Quick Start Guide. Okay, on first boot, you should come to the Raspberry configuration window, which I think is that. I'm not exactly sure yet. This is setting up the card for first use. I think this will take just a little bit of time. Since I don't have an Ethernet plug-in, it's not checking for that or anything. So it's done. And I also, this image is the Raspbian and Wheezy image, which is the Linux image, which is what I recommend you use if you're starting out first, because the easiest to set up. Okay, the Raspberry config. This is the Raspberry config window. So what the instructions say to do is, hold on a sec here. It says change settings such as time zone and locale if you want. Finally, select the second choice. Expand root fs and then hit yes, because now it will reboot on the temporary files. And it says the temporary default login credentials are Pi for the username, and then Raspberry for the password, or something like that. And then to start, you just hit Start X, and then you're good to go. So I'm going to change the locale and a couple things real quick, and I'll be back. Okay, so all I did was just change the time zone. So now when you hit expand root fs with enter, it should reboot, and then you just type start X like it says on the start guide, start X. Okay. So, and you can also change things like overclocking, which is very cool. Boot behavior, start desktop automatically on boot, which you might want to set, you might not, I didn't set it, but SSH, memory split, change the passcode for the Pi user, and a bunch of other things. So, once I hit enter, now it comes back and it says root partition has been resized, the file system will be enlarged and so it'll apply the entire system so that it can reboot properly. Okay, so now I think we can just hit finish, and then you hit reboot now. Now it's rebooting down below, and it's applying these settings so that we can boot into the desktop mode. Go. And power save. Ooh. Okay, you get that colored thing every time, I'm pretty sure. Activating swap. Going through the process. I'll come back when it prompts me to say start X. Okay, so this one part took a while. It says performing an online resize of something 4K blocks. That part will take a while depending on your SD card speed and the speed of the processor, which is not that fast. So that part takes a while, but once you're done, goes to Raspberry Pi login. The reboot again probably took about 5 minutes. Then you should type in Pi, it says, and then password will be Raspberry. Oh, I see. I think it's hidden. So you just type in RASPBERRY. So now when you get this, you should type in start X. Start X, hit enter, and it should boot into the desktop environment. And this is a modified version of Linux, by the way. So this is just a version of Linux that is optimized for ARM processors versus the ones standard in our desktops. So, wow, that booted up pretty quickly. So you get a couple cool things. there's something on here called, some programs called Midori, Idle, PyStore, LLX. Terminal Scratch is a main thing that they're trying to get running for this Raspberry Pi. PyStore, Idle, Midori, again, Debian reference, Wi-Fi configuration. If you want to plug in a Wi-Fi adapter and use that instead of plugging it into the Ethernet, you can do that. Python games, Idle 3, and then you have a interesting start bar down here. And let me show you guys a little bit better. My mouse is right here. It looks kind of like a Mac mouse, ironically. Click down here. You get graphics, internet. I guess that there's a browser called oh no, NetSurf is the generic one. Maybe Dillo is another one. I don't know if you can see this. This is kind of a large screen. You get Dillo, Midori, NetSurf web browser, and some other stuff like education, Scratch, Squeak, graphics, other programming. You get Idle, Scratch, Squeak. Preferences. You can change what you want to do. You can log out. I don't know what these are. Let me see. This. I guess these. Oh, these are how you make. I think these are how you make your windows bigger and stuff when it's in there. This. Oh no. Okay. I guess it does take a while to launch apps since you're running off an SD card. Sorry about that. Since you're running off an SD card, it will take a while to open programs, but I'm scrolling fine. There's not that much lag. I mean, there's not really any lag, frankly. And this is just a very cheap way to browse the web, use the internet, check email. You can all this obviously requires an internet connection, which I don't have right now. But you can use Scratch. You can play games on it since the GPU is actually not bad in here. And this is interesting. You get a little monitor of your status right there at the bottom. It tells you the time. That's not the right time, but obviously you can change that in the settings. You get this interesting little thing down here, which I think is a sort of like an activity monitor, and it'll monitor the usage of the CPU and such, which is kind of cool. And you get your time, and you can, there's a reboot button right from there. So that is all, and it comes with the standard Raspberry Pi background, which I like, is cool. So that's about it. Follow us on Twitter at technolockr. Follow us on Facebook. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/technolockr. And we are coming out with a new site in a week, which I'm very excited about. We almost coded the entire thing purely on code, not from like one of those easy make websites. We had a Blogger site earlier. I don't know if you knew about that, but that one didn't go so well. Blogger doesn't have enough features, so I decided to just do it myself. So that should be out in a week or two, and yeah, stay tuned for more videos. If you have any questions or comments, suggestions, contact us at technolockr@gmail.com or either one of the social media sites. And once the website's out, you'll be able to contact us a little bit easier, and we'll be able to get news out to you better and all that. So that's it for this video. If you would like to see anything more on the Raspberry Pi, just let me know. And see you guys in the next video. Bye.